Hello, everyone. This is the Vice President of Internet Infidels, Edward Tamesian, and today I have a very special guest who I've already interviewed before, and his name is Bill Gaede. And he used to be an ex-Cuban spy, and now he is a physicist. And before we get into the question, sir, did you want to add anything to your introduction?
Yeah, maybe a couple of things, since I guess we're going to be talking about Carl Sagan. We're going to be talking about tesseracts, hypercubes, right? And I just wanted to mention that I was a fan of Carl Sagan during many years. I stopped being a fan for essentially three reasons. First of all, I think he was an excellent teacher, okay? And so that captivated me, that really caught my attention.
Yeah.
But he had three things that I eventually grew out of. And one of them was he was an atheist. I'm no longer an atheist. He was a person who supported quantum mechanics and general relativity, essentially, mathematical physics. I fight with tooth and nail against mathematical physics. Everything that's happened in the last 100 years, especially last 400 years, really. I'm saying there's a different scientific method. The scientific method we have today is irrational, and Carl Sagan supported that scientific method and mathematical physics. And the third reason is that he and I, as well, like 30, 40 years ago, thought we were going to go to the stars, that we were going to make contact with another civilization, et cetera, et cetera. And today, I think we're going to go extinct very soon. Humans are going to go out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those three reasons, I no longer am a fan of Carl Sagan.
Yeah, and everyone, he's got some videos and some website links to pages about the extinction of man. I thought they were interesting. You can all check that on online. And all righty, so we'll begin the first question. And before,
maybe may I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I have a beard, I just came from vacation, and so I haven't even had time to shave. So sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. We got it. And just to clarify for everyone, though Bill Gaede said he wasn't an atheist, that doesn't mean he's a theist either. He has an interesting position. So I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, because when most people say I'm not an atheist, they think, oh, like he's a theist. But yeah, but he's not that either. He's a mystery card. He's got an interesting position.
I created a new category.
There you go. Yep. We're all about innovation. That's what we need these days. All righty. So going into our first question. So I recently watched a video of Carl Sagan talking about four-dimensional tesseracts, and it was interesting. Just to give a brief summarization of what he was saying. He was saying, suppose there's 2Ders and they're living in a 2D universe, and they're conscious, and you have motion, but they're comprised of length and width, but no height. And he said, well, these cards that I have a little bit of height, but let's just assume there's no height, just length and width. And he says, 2Ders is kind of like moving around, and suddenly, a 3D from like a parallel dimension or whatever, a parallel universe wants to make contact with them, and then the 3D is like, hey, can you see me? And he was like, like the 2D thinks he's hallucinating, hearing voices, and suddenly the 3D makes himself known into the 2D universe. Of course, they can't. When the 3D comes into the 2D universe, since you can't have height in the 2D universe, the 2D are seeing the 3D not in the same way that we would see the 3D. So it's like kind of like segments of just length and width without height. Like, oh, okay, so it's like I see something, but I don't exactly understand what the three dimensions are. I only know back and forth. And the 3D is like, well, you don't know up and down? He's like, no, I've never heard of, like, which direction is that? I don't know what up and down is. It's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to show you. So the 3D comes in and pulls the 2D out of this universe. Very interesting. And then he's like, and then the 2D magically is comprised of height now. And it's like, oh, I know what up and down is. And then, and that's what he said. And it was very interesting. And so Carl Sagan was like, well, just imagine that we're in a similar predicament to the 2D. We're in a three-dimensional universe, and suppose that a four-dimensional being wants to make contact with us. And they say, hey, there's a a fourth manner in which an object can face that's mutually perpendicular to length, width, and height. There's a fourth mutually perpendicular direction. And we're like, what the heck is that? Like, you're saying that, like, just imagine a ball and you have all these arrows pointing outside of it. It literally comprises of every single direction you can think of. And he's like, well, there's a direction other than the direction there. And I'm like, that's all the directions there are. He's like, no, I'm gonna have to show you. I guess I'm gonna have to show you. And then so he takes me into the four-dimensional universe, and allegedly I can comprehend what this other direction is. And I'm like, I almost think Carl Sagan's starting point is fallacious, because, like, I think you brought it up too. You can elaborate on it later. I'll just end off with with 2Ders, like, in order to have motion, there has to be an object that, like, occupies space, a hypothetical region of space. Like, you can't have motion without objects that exist out here. So it's like, I'm wondering how he can envision objects moving without height with them. And it's just like the fact that the 2Ders are conscious. Can you have consciousness in 2D? It seem like you need a brain in something 3D to have consciousness. So, like, I just think his starting point is kind of irrational to begin with. Like, just because you can't go to 2D to 3D, you can't go to 3D to 4D. So yeah, what do you think about this? Let you chime in, man.
I think you did pretty good summarizing. I can let me do a summary myself also of what that video says. It's like a 7-8 minute video, and this is essentially what he says. So I'm going to be addressing these issues that he raises. He says astronomers say space is curved and the universe is finite but unbounded. Whatever are they talking about? That's how he begins his video, right? Then he goes into the analogy of using Flatland. Okay, so he says it has width and length, but no height, no mystic dimension called up, right? Then he goes through all these steps. He says, he starts, because he's going to end up with this hypercube. He wants to explain how you construct, or how they ended up with a hypercube, or otherwise known as a tesseract. So he says, imagine the shadow of a cube in 2D. Okay, so just think of a cube, right? And you point a shadow, well, you get something more or less, as far as he was concerned, like a square. Okay, so that's the idea he's got. He says a square is a shadow of a cube in 2D, right? That's how he starts. So he wants to prepare your mind, so he's going to take you through all these little steps, right? He says, now imagine a direction at right angles to length, width, and height. Remember, you're at 2D, right? And now you're going to have to look at a direction at right angles to length, width, and height. And like you said, it's unimaginable. You cannot imagine, at least in our 3D world. And they say, well, yeah, of course, because we're puny 3D beings like the 2D.
You're just like that 2D.
Yeah, so like they didn't understand what up was. They didn't understand what height was. In the same way, we cannot imagine or understand what this dimension, which is perpendicular to all three known dimensions, right, is. We cannot imagine it. Okay, so he said, but imagine that there is a fourth physical direction. And he admits, he says, I can't show you what direction that is. He says it. Okay.
Yeah,
but he says, but imagine that there is a fourth physical dimension. Okay, so let's concede. Let's say, okay, let's imagine that there is one. I cannot visualize it, but let's concede the assumption. Okay.
Yeah.
He said we would generate a 4-dimensional hypercube, also called a tesseract. I cannot show you a tesseract because I am trapped in 3 dimensions. Okay, so he again confesses, I can show you the shadow in 3D of a 4D hypercube.
A 3D shadow.
Right, and he's saying that this shadow looks like 2 nested cubes. So he's got one cube inside the other one, the famous tesseract, the picture that he's got out there. Okay, there's several problems here. Several problems. I want to go through each one of them. The first one is that mathematical dimensions have nothing at all to do with physical dimensions. In physics, it's straightforward. It's baby stuff. It's kindergarten stuff. Length, width, height. We're done.
Yeah.
And what are those? We are saying these are directions which are perpendicular to each other. First of all, they're 90 degrees to each other. And any object that is 3D, we say that an object is 3-dimensional because it can point in these 3 mutually perpendicular directions. We're done. Okay, that's where it stops for physics. It's very simple kindergarten stuff. That's not what a dimension, what a coordinate, or what a vector is for the purposes of mathematics. Mathematics defines a dimension as the number of coordinates. Number of coordinates necessary to locate a point within an object. So if you have, let me give you an object, a very simple object. Here we have a Rubik's cube. We've got a cube, okay? So a dimension in mathematics is not length, width, and height. That's baby stuff for them. They don't care for that. They say a dimension is the number of coordinates that you need to locate a point within this box, within this cube. So if I need 3 coordinates to locate a point within it or on the surface of it or whatever, then it's 3-dimensional. That's the notion. And so we've got a problem because of the following. Dimension in physics, again, because they're going to extrapolate their notion to physics. That's where the problem is. If they kept it within mathematics, we could care less. But they are going to extrapolate that into physics. That's where we run into trouble. And this is where the problem is. A dimension has to do with objects, with the way an object points or tilts or faces. Coordinate has to do with the location of an object with respect to some reference frame. For example, this box with respect to this room. So I can say, what is the location of this box? Well, for that, I use coordinates, okay? And I don't use length, width, and height. I use latitude, longitude, and altitude. So I say, well, there's, I have one direction, and this is all qualitative, by the way. I have one direction going up and down, the other one going sideways, and the other one going towards me. And those are the only 3 that I can imagine. I cannot imagine a 4th dimension to this. Okay, that's the first problem. So a dimension is not a coordinate is not a dimension. Dimension is used for tilt, for orientation, it's for objects. Coordinates is for the location of an object. Vector is neither one. A vector has to do with motion. It's a dynamic concept. Vector means that you're going to be moving breadth, elevation, and what's the other one? And I forget the other one, the first one, like length, but it's not length, it's known as depth. So you have depth, breadth, and elevation. Those are the 3 vectors of physics. Okay, they have nothing to do with latitude, longitude, and altitude, which have nothing to do with length, width, and height. These are 3 different types of concepts. What the mathematicians have done is they bunch them all together because they don't care about qualitative stuff. And they said, look, what they really are talking about is number lines. Number lines have what dimensions don't have, and dimensions have what number lines don't have. A number line only has magnitude and has no direction. Numbers don't go in any direction. You can point the numbers in any direction you want, because numbers have, even in curves if you want, because numbers only increase. But they always put that little arrow in those Cartesian coordinates, you know, and they put them in straight lines, and they say, they give you the impression that it's got direction. One of those are going to replace, which is height or altitude, whichever one you want. And they're going to replace that with time. And they're going to say, look, we put all the other 3 dimensions into one dimension. We call it space. And that's your 3 dimension. And then the other one is going to be time. But time doesn't run perpendicular to anything. So you cannot put time with length. You cannot put time with width. You cannot put time with height.
Just redefining dimension.
Yeah, the question here is an issue of definitions. What is a dimension? And again, a dimension for mathematics is very different than a dimension for physics. That's the first problem. Okay, so once we get a handle on that, then we have another problem, because this Carl Sagan says, look, the shadow of a 4-dimensional tesseract, which we cannot imagine, a hypercube, we cannot imagine, or hypersphere, you can also, which is a little more complicated, you cannot imagine that. But a shadow of that in our 3D world looks like a pair of nested cubes, one inside the other, one bigger than the other. That's essentially the notion. And the corners of those are united by time. That's what time is. That's the fourth dimension, which is perpendicular, according to them, in the fourth dimension, right? Perpendicular to the other three. What's the problem with that? What these people are saying is you take a cube, take this cube, right? And you expand it in every direction, like radially, right? So you're going to expand it in every direction. That's how you end up with a nested cube, one bigger than the other. But what are those lines that unite the vertices? Those are time. That's time that you're talking about. So a hypercube, so-called hypercube, or the shadow of the hypercube in our 3D world, is a box that is expanding through time. It's a movie of a box expanding. That's what they're talking about. That's their concept of a tesseract, of a hypercube, of an expanding cube. They take that movie, and so you have this movie that's expanding. Okay, so we have the movie that's expanding, right? So far, the box is expanding. So you have a movie of that. Now they do something even worse. Now they're going to rotate the tesseract. So now they're going to, not only is this box expanding through time, meaning you've got motion there, you're talking about a film, but now you're going to rotate that box.
I've seen those computers.
Also time. So now you have two dimensions of time and three of space, because you need one where the box expands and the other one where it rotates. You got two motions. And so now we're talking about a 5-dimensional box here. 2 of time and 3 of space. Because that's what they did. That's conceptually what they're talking about. And this is the problem I got with what Sagan is saying, and relativists in general. They want to give you an idea that space-time is 4-dimensional. Let's assume that's the case. What is the 4th dimension? Time, they tell you. Okay, that's the worldly wisdom out there. Whether they declared it or not, whether they believe it or not, it doesn't matter. But that's the 4th dimension as far as 90% at least of the people out there are concerned. Okay, so we have this 4th dimension, which is time. Again, they put it perpendicular to length, width, and height, which is space. That's already irrational, because time does not run perpendicular to anything. You know, they say, well, it runs forward. Well, Ed, what's your forward? Your forward is my backward, I guess. I go, my forward is against your forward. So which direction does your time run? Forward or backward or sideways or upwards? I mean, what is that? It's nonsense. That's what it is. So they got stuck in language. You know, they ran around in circles with their own definitions. And again, they're using number lines, and they're calling them dimensions, coordinates, and vectors when they're really talking about number lines. Number lines have no direction. Number lines have no perpendicularity. Dimensions, coordinates, and vectors have perpendicularity and and direction. What they don't have is magnitude. They're qualitative concepts. So never the twain shall meet. Coordinates will never, or dimension will never match number lines, and vice versa.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I know. And it's kind of like when he was saying that, I was like, about the 4-dimensional tesseract. It's kind of like him saying, like, well, in the 4-dimensional world, imagine the clock that can spin in a direction that isn't clockwise or counterclockwise. It's like, but like, which direction is like there? That's all it can spin. He's like, well, you just live in a 3D universe where the clock can only spin in 2 directions. In the 4D universe, it can spin in 3, and you're just like, that's all the ways an object can spin. It's like, it's just so similar with the tesseract. It's like the most object can face is in 3 directions. Like if you have a ball with arrows pointing out of that on every side of it, like a ball, but the arrow ball. Like that's literally every direction. And he's saying, well, there's a direction that's different than that. But that summarizes all the directions. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the issue here, and you more or less touched upon it just now, it's unimaginable. And they say, well, of course it's unimaginable because that's a 4th-dimensional world and we're stuck in the 3D world. But the issue is, I got to talk to you, and you're a 3-dimensional being. They cannot make an assumption that's outside of our experience in that sense, in the sense that it's even unimaginable. You cannot imagine what they're talking about. So,
Yeah.
if you cannot imagine, if like Sagan says here, he says it twice, he says, I cannot show you what direction that is. And then he says, I cannot show you a tesseract because I am trapped in 3 dimensions. So if he cannot imagine it, what's his theory? Well,
Yeah,
what
it's
do we
not
have this
conceivable,
for?
it's not believable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather believe in God than to believe in the tesseract.
Yeah,
I
it's just
pray to God, not to the tesseract, because that's unimaginable. God,
yeah,
I
I
can
know.
imagine, a guy with a
Yeah,
magic
exactly.
wand,
That's what I was telling. I was telling my friend Jason Thibodeau that at least like with a miracle, you can at least imagine like the motions of like Jesus raising someone from the dead. Like
or him flying into heaven.
yeah,
Right.
like you can imagine now that it's like how does the conclusion follow from the theory? Like, how is that possible? That's something else, but at least you can conceive of it. But like with a 4D tesseract, you can't conceive of it. It's like in the same category of a circle square. Like if you can't conceive of it, it's not even possible,
Yeah, no, and again, the important thing here is that, and I want to emphasize this again, that the projection because they say, yeah, we're not in the 4D world, we cannot imagine it, fine, okay, let's concede that. But they're talking about the shadow of the tesseract in our world. And when they put that shadow and they say a nested cube, one inside the other, they're talking about motion because those vertices that are connected, that's time. That line there represents time. Okay.
Yeah, true.
And so if that's time, they're talking about motion. And if they rotate that whole hypercube, as you will see it everywhere, that they rotate the hypercube, now we have this thing is expanding. They take a snapshot of that. Now they rotate it. Now the other one, for the next shot, they have to have it expand again, and they rotate it. Expand, rotate. So they're talking about 2 motions, 2 times.
Gotcha.
Simultaneously, these
yeah, that's interesting.
What I'm talking about is they're nested times.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that was a good summarization. Yeah, you kind of had some of the same concerns as I did. So yeah, thanks for explaining that for us. And then for our last question today, and we touched about it in our other interview we had, is about your life as a spy. And so from what I understand, so you grew up in Argentina and then joined the Communist Party, and that was you like that, and life was good more or less, at least, and more or less.
It's good in here in your head because you sympathize with it at the time, right? And so
yeah.
That's
gotcha. Yeah, understand. Yeah, and so then later on, you ended up moving up to California, and you joined Advanced Micro Devices, and you ended up working up your way to like the head engineer.
I was a manager of a whole shift. I had supervisors, engineers, technicians, all under me. Yeah.
Awesome. And then
the job was known as facilitator, but it was a manager, a whole shift manager for the thin films area. I worked in.
Gotcha. All righty. And then while you were doing that, you were giving information from AMD to the Cubans.
Yeah. For many years,
and then after
all the way till to approximately 1979.
Oh wow! Okay,
so
alrighty,
for 13 years.
Oh, okay, alrighty, and then when you were doing that, you received notoriety and stuff from what you were doing, and then eventually you ended up joining a clandestine operation in which you went to South America and gave some of the information you received from AMD to some Chinese and Iranians in South America.
Well, we have to understand intermediate steps. They're important to understand why that happened. Yes, it did happen, but let me explain what happened. What happened was I began working with the FBI because I turned myself into the CIA. Okay,
that's correct. Yeah,
I turned myself into the CIA. This was in 1992. In August of 1992, I turned myself over to the CIA. They delegated me, or they sent the FBI to my house. So we started working with the FBI in what is known as a counter-espionage operation. Okay. So I worked with them for about 2 years. Okay. And during that time, I got into Intel Corporation, thanks to using them as a reference. I used the FBI as FBI agents.
Indeed, Intel.
But see,
interesting turn of events.
Well, when you look at all this, how the world works, it's just funny out there. A lot of people don't know how all these organizations work. You know, when I turned myself into the CIA, essentially because some Cubans asked, some Cuban military intelligence officers asked me to turn myself in. And I said,
Okay.
geez, they're going to put me in prison. They said, no, they're going to work with you. And that's exactly what happened. You would think
Oh,
that they put you
interesting.
in prison. No, they don't. They work with you. And that's what happened. And so when I turned myself to the CIA, the CIA, they sent me over to the FBI, or the FBI came to my house, et cetera, and we started working with them. What happened was they had to keep the Cubans, the Cuban intelligence service, continue to believe that I was for real, that nothing had changed in my life.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they gave me information.
So you were a double agent.
Double agent. And so at that point, they gave me information to give to the Cubans. And the information was from Inter Corporation. That's what happened.
Oh, gotcha.
But so yeah. That's why Intel got a little upset when they found out about me, because, you know, first of all, what was happening was AMD was looking for me everywhere and they couldn't find me. But they knew that I was with the FBI, that the FBI knew where I was. And the FBI said, look, we cannot tell you where he's at because we're working on a secret counter-espionage operation. So they would not tell AMD. What happened was AMD put a wanted poster of some kind at the Semiconductor Association in California, which is very big over there. And to that semiconductor organization or association, Intel belonged to that, AMD and so many other companies. What happened was the security manager of Intel, his name was Steve Lund. He goes up there and he sees the wanted poster, says, oh, I'm going to look to see if this guy, if I can find him. It turns out, oh shit, he comes back, he says, this guy's working for us. And that's where the whole thing blew up in the face of the FBI, because they said, hold it, this guy's working at Intel and the FBI did not tell us about it. So they contacted the FBI and they said, look, this guy, he's a spy, he's working for us. And the FBI and they
claim that told them before, right?
No. And the FBI says, yeah, we know. What were they going to tell them?
Gotcha.
And so the fight was, Intel was saying, you guys didn't tell us. And the FBI said, yeah, we told you. And
yeah, that's what I was saying. The FBI claimed that, but then Intel, I remember the interview on Fox News. The guy was like, if we would have known Bill Gaede was doing an operation, there's no way we would have hired him. That would have been, I can't believe the FBI said that.
Like, in fact, I've got a recording. In fact, I think in that same interview, I gave him that recording. And I talked with, what was his name? The FBI agent, Jim King. He was the FBI agent in Austin, Texas. And I have a phone conversation with him, which I recorded everything I could. And in that conversation, I tell him, look, you know, I managed to get into Intel, like secretly. And he said, well, I don't think there's not much that could be showing up on your record that Intel could find out about. And so, you know, I mean, obviously, the FBI had not told Intel that I was working for them. What happened was that when they found out about me, they put Steve Lund put the pressure on me to cooperate, quotations, with an internal investigation.
Okay.
Internal investigation was an external investigation. They were trying to collect information for AMD. That's what was happening. AMD was, they wanted to kill me. They wanted to murder me. And they were looking all over for me. And Intel, you know, I think took the opportunity to say, well, you know, you signed a confidentiality agreement. You also are working for us. And it says there that you must cooperate with any internal investigation. And they were starting to ask me questions about what happened at AMD. And I said, screw you, I can't. And I asked the FBI, what do I tell them? And the guys at the FBI told me, look, tell them that you cannot cooperate because you're working in a counter-espionage operation. That's what I told them, but they wouldn't buy it. They said, you got to cooperate. So I was between the sword and the wall. That's essentially, that's what it was. And at one point, because I saw it coming, I said, I better get some insurance. And so I started copying. I logged on to I was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I logged onto the database in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they had the Pentium, all the specs. And rather than download them, which would, throw in all the bells, I filmed it. I spent a whole week and Saturday and Sunday, 12 hours each day. That's how much I copied, you can imagine. And what I did was I ran the specs and filmed. Ran the spec. I had my camera there on a tripod and just film. I put them in 3 cassettes, and then we went on vacation with my wife to Greece. We had to go to Greece for different things, and it turns out that Intel was following me around. And they discovered I had a storage under the name of Bill Green. I had all kinds of fake documents and so on. So I had a storage under the name Bill Green, and someone broke into the storage lockers. They broke into 10 lockers, among them mine, which was the first one, really. Mine was the first locker. So they broke into mine. Miracle, they didn't take all my gold coins that I had there. They missed it. But they did find the cassettes, and that's apparently what they wanted. So it was kind of strange that, they broke into this storage. We come back from Greece, and we discover that someone broke into the storage. And, I had the police from the Phoenix police. They wanted to talk to me. I said, you want to talk to me? They robbed me, and you want to talk to me. Why don't you talk to the guy who robbed me, kind of thing. And it turns out that the way the story goes, because this is what Intel told me, the tapes ended up in the hands of Steve Lund, the security manager for Intel. And so because of that, they fired me. But it turns out that among the tapes, they found out I had been filming the FBI and the CIA for 2 years.
Yeah, you were filming the FBI like in your oven. You had like a video cassette, you put it in your oven.
That was just one of them. I mean, I went with a little recorder even to the CIA, which it would have cost me my life probably, because when I got there, there was one of these guys, agents from the CIA. He came out with a gun in his hand. He said, "Put your hands on top of that car." And I was like, whoa! So I put my hands on top of the car, but he was
James Bond.
Yeah, but he was more scared than I was, I guess. He probably thought I had a bomb or something. I don't know. And so he frisked me, and he missed the recorder, which was in my underwear.
Oh, being anticipating that. Yeah, put it where they're not going to go.
I didn't think I didn't think they were going to treat me like that. I thought I was just going to walk in like anybody. No, they frisked me.
No, so when you walked into the CIA, they were like,
"Oh yeah." Oh,
dang, you're like, I'm coming on my own. I guess they didn't care.
Yeah, because I had talked them all day asking to talk to a case agent. And when I got there, that's the reception I got. And so when the guy frisked me, he says, "Okay, walk through those doors." I went through those doors, and there was a lady, and she was apparently she had some kind of makeup. She had a costume on, really. She was dressed up with different hair and so on. I was convinced she was dressed up. And so she said, "Okay, why are you here?" And I told her, that I was giving information from the Cuban intelligence service to them. And I told them everything that, I had done. I confessed. And she said, "Okay, we're going to be in contact with you." And I left. That's it. Nothing more happened than that. 45 days later, I get the FBI at my home. So from that time on, I had been recording because, I said, who knows what's going to happen? And that's
people
what
kind
happened.
of believe you,
They denied knowing me at first. Then they said, "Yeah, we know him, but at first they said, we caught a spy." What do you mean you caught a spy? I was working for you. And then they said, "Look, the signature." So they were screwed from every point of view. And so I had all that information. When eventually I went to court, the prosecutors had to deal with me because, it's like I say, They had me by the balls, and I had them by the balls. And it's
Yeah.
whoever
Did they accept the video recording as evidence in the oven?
Oh yeah,
Okay, I'm sure that helped out because
they knew I had them by the balls, so they had to.
And after that, that's when the FBI had to admit they compensated you, I think $607.16 for matters dealing with counterintelligence.
They gave me a little more than that.
Some
See, some of it was cash. Yeah, some of it was cash and so on. So we had different dealings with them. Okay, but the issue is that these people they thought that that when the prosecutors got me, they said we have to reach an agreement with him. And the way they squeezed me, because there was no law really to prosecute me. The way
because you're like who? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
The way they squeezed me, see, they were going to hit me with a National Stolen Properties Act. National Stolen Properties Act was originally made for Bonnie and Clyde and John Dillinger, people who would steal a car, cross the state line, and they couldn't follow them. So what happened was the sheriff on the other side had to deal with it, but the crime was committed here, so they had no jurisdiction. And that's when they came up with the National Stolen Properties Act, and it became a federal offense. For example, to steal a car and take it across state lines. Then they put helicopters, then they put motorcycles and so on. They had all kinds of vehicles. And then they used it also for intangibles, for information. But see, information, you cannot take it across state line. What does it mean to state information, to take information across state line?
I see what you're saying.
So they had no real law. They were using a stealing law for intangibles, for copyright stuff. And it didn't make any sense. But the way they pressured me is first, not through that statute, but mainly through the mail fraud statute, on the one hand. And if you ever read the mail fraud statute, you can catch any fly with that. I mean, even breathing is a crime under that statute. It's got so many semicolons and commas that it's just unbelievable. If you do this, if you do that, and if this and if that, it's just unbelievable. That was one issue. The other issue was they went after my wife. And yeah, so they were going to put her in prison. So I said, look, let's reach an agreement. We reached an agreement. That's why I got a lenient service, because a sentence, because I had them also by the balls.
Yeah, you had that evidence.
So I just like an agreement. There was no other choice for any of us.
Yeah. I like how it's like you got charged with a crime, but the CIA and the FBI, like no one punished them, even though they're the ones that we're helping you do this and gave you the incentive. Oh, well,
Yeah, the issue there is one is that they got off the hook very lightly because they would have been in big trouble. But as far as the issue in court, I think I would have won it. There were 4 issues that I raised in I put a motion to dismiss. That's what it's called. And the 4 issues that I raised, if I see if I can remember all 4 of them. One is that the information did not belong to Intel. It did not belong to, Intel, that's what it was. The information did not belong to Intel, even if I would have taken it, copied it, or whatever, because they never registered it. And even to this day, they have not registered it for several reasons. One is, you change the specs every day. You're not going to change the patent law or the copyright law every time you change the spec. That's one issue. And another issue is that they don't register processes because, again, processes are secret. They want to have a secret patent, and they do have, to this day, secret patents. Nobody knows how they make them, because in order to know that, you got to work inside the company, and for that, you got to sign a confidentiality agreement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
And then the other one is that, a question of jurisdiction. Was the crime committed in Arizona, where I stole it with quotations, or was it in this transportation across state lines to California, which gives the jurisdiction to California?
Mm-hmm.
So what this
interesting
court deals with it is the crime stealing, copying in this case, right, which they turn into stealing, or is it transportation of stolen goods or known to be stolen, and they have to prove that it's stolen? And how do you prove stealing of intangibles? I mean, if I steal your shoe, you cannot use it. And that's how you know I stole it. But if I steal your song, steal with quotations, I can sing it, you can sing it, everybody can sing it. So
Yeah.
that cross state lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can see how tricky it
Can't
is.
take a concept.
Exactly.
You can't take a concept from place to place. Yeah, gotcha. That's interesting. And then yeah, and for everyone who's interested in some more further investigation, Bill has a video of the Fox News segment that covers this ordeal that happened many years ago. And there's also a video on Amazon Prime called El Crazy Che, which is based on his work for the CIA. And just to comment on one thing,
Yeah.
rumor has it that your clandestine operation was so successful that Fidel Castro wanted to meet up with you in person. Is that true?
Not only true, they paid for our trip all the way to Cuba. And we were treated like royalty. I mean, but it was so funny because to circumvent any detection, especially from the United States, we had to go to Mexico. From Mexico to Spain, they took our passports away, gave us fake Argentine passports. So they took our Argentine passports, our real ones. They gave us fake ones that they had manufactured for us. We gave them pictures, etc., at some time in advance. From there, we went to Barcelona to Vienna. From Vienna, we went by train to Czechoslovakia. For the first time, I entered a communist country. They took our fake Argentine passports away. They gave us fake Cuban diplomatic passports, which were red. With those, we got on Chiesa, which was the airline, I think it still is, from the Czechoslovakian airline. From there, we flew to Canada, to Toronto. From Toronto, we flew to Cuba. So we had to go all around just to get to Cuba. So Fidel had to go to his treasure chest to get us into Cuba.
Gotcha. Did you end up meeting him?
No, and again, I think we know why we did not end up meeting him. They said that he was busy, but I don't think that was the case, because I think what happened was, in the meantime, they figured out that we were no longer supporting the Cuban Revolution.
Okay.
And so they decided to essentially burn us, but they were going to burn us by sticking a hook into the CIA's mouth.
Okay.
So they sent us without us knowing to the CIA. So these agents who said, go to the CIA and tell them that we want to overthrow the Cuban government, Fidel Castro. And these guys were working with us. And so we had faith in them, but really they were under the gun. Fidel Castro said, do this, send these guys to the CIA and give them some lousy information and a couple good ones in there, but they put also some fake information in there to feed it to the CIA. You see what happened here? And so we went there naively, we gave the information to the CIA. And when I asked the agents of the FBI, I said, well, was the information they gave you good? They said, very, very good. But it turns out they said it was very good. And I think it was good, most of it, but there were a couple fake pieces of information that were very important for the Cuban government, for the CIA to swallow. There was just to give you an idea, there was a very important man in Miami, a rich guy, very friendly with Trump in those days. I got a photograph of both of them together. And this guy's a rich guy working with Trump. And they said he was a spy for Cuba.
Okay.
And so they said, hold it, all this information is good. And this guy's a spy? You see the point?
Yeah, okay.
The CIA to swallow that. And so, you know, the CIA had to be very careful. Is this guy a spy or not? You know, and so they had these issues. And so this is how the agencies play with each other.
Okay. And it took you a while to kind of figure that out. Like it was just after the fact, you were like, oh, they gave me some bad stuff to give us a conundrum.
Let me tell you how I found out. I had like all these names. And one day I said, I'm going to search these names, who they are. And I found this guy because he was a very popular guy. Again, he went around with Trump. And I said, oh, hold it. This is the guy that I turned in. this guy's a spy. So I myself questioned that. I said, oh, I think that they fed this one as a fake, bit of information.
Interesting.
So
Would that happen to be Captain Jose Pepe?
no.
That's
It
someone
wasn't
else.
him.
Okay.
No, it was
It's someone else. Okay. Because I
Yeah.
know he was. I read something about him too. Like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's another guy.
That's a
All
long
righty, yeah.
story. That's for another day.
Enough for a day. All right, yeah.
That's a full
I think I
story.
remember. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think I remember some segment of him on like some not on some like video coverage, and he was like getting angry. He's like, whatever. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there's a lot into this, but yeah, we covered a good amount, so people have a good idea of like your background and stuff. So that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, Bill.
Okay.
Very exciting
Yeah.
ride, but unfortunately, like you told me in the last interview, you didn't get any sexy women. It wasn't like the James Bond film. They didn't give you a sexy partner in crime. Like, hey, here's 006.
I still have my wife.
There you go, dude. There you go. There you go. There you go. All right. I know you both are in one piece. That's more than you can ask for. All righty. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Bill. And then so to close out, I guess I can just let you promote yourself. You can promote your YouTube channel, and if you have any lectures or anything, you can talk to us about that as well.
Yeah, essentially, I have a YouTube channel, bgaede, okay, and primarily it's a rant against mathematical physics, general relativity, quantum mechanics, and string theory. I'm very much against those three groups, and I'm saying none of that is science. So he who wants to find out about it will find out not only my criticism, but what I replace it with.
Awesome. Sounds good. And you have a book out there called Why God Doesn't Exist, but it's not an
there's also
no, I was going to say it's not an atheist rant. It's about your criticism of, mathematical physics.
Right. Yeah. And the reason is the physics is the science of existence. That's why the title looks like that. The other one that you should mention is that there's a free book that people can look at that first, and that's the rope hypothesis. And that's at my website, which is ropehypothesis.com.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Bill. And in a couple of minutes, I'll have this downloaded and ready for you to share.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ed.
Yeah. Thank you.
I will see you next time.
Yeah. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.